Hey all, how's it going? So in this one, I want to kind of expand on the idea of the instructions that we worked on last time, where we can give instructions as context to the agent so that it can actually figure out like how we want to actually write doc strings for each of our functions, and that was useful to fix all of the doc strings, right? So in this .github folder, you can actually create another folder in here called agents. So this kind of expands on the idea of giving custom instructions. We can actually define specific agents. So if you see right down here in this dropdown, we have this dropdown of plan, ask, etc. This will create a new agent in here, which we can define custom instructions in Markdown for, of like, this is what I want you to be able to do. I want you to plan this out. And then, for example, send it to another agent that can actually implement the functionality. And those agents can have access to different tools. For example, saying like planner, I want you to only be able to read the files. I don't want you to write anything. And then implementer, I want you to just write what the planner has scoped out for you to be able to do. And I don't want you to touch the test files, for example, if that makes sense. So what I want to do here is I want to implement a new feature where we can start actually posting scores of our workouts. So I want to try this out and actually have agents be able to do this for me. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do here is I want this to go through like a test-driven development type methodology. So I want to have something plan it out, and then I want to design a test that will fail, and then I want to actually implement code that will fix the test. So our first thing is we want to make an actual planner. So we'll make a new file in the agents folder, and we'll call it planner dot, and it has to have this .agents.md extension on it. And then I have some code here on my clipboard. So the name is, this is just the name of how the agent is going to appear. So if I save this and then click agents, you see that we have a planner down here. So we can use that and it'll just do this agent right here. Have a little description. So these are the tools that it actually has access to. Now what VS Code will do is it will have this little configure tools icon up here. So you can see like the check marks are the tools that we're actually giving it. So I only have 11 tools right here. So you might have seen before that sometimes with agents, they'll have like, every single tool, and the speed of the chats start to degrade after a certain number. I think it's like 100 or something like that. Let's just escape that so it doesn't actually edit the tools. But so these are the only tools that we're going to need. We're going to need to search so that we can actually search through all of our files, give it a to-do so it can create a to-do task, and then open a simple browser so if it needs to search on the web for anything, we can do that. We can define the model that we want it to use. Now, the model name has to be one of these, exactly, and the use of that is that if you're using like a model that doesn't apply credits. I'm on the Copilot Pro edition, I think I am. These don't actually use any premium credits, but if you're using like Claude Opus 4.5, then it uses 3 times the amount of credits. So you might not want that for this because you can be like, the planet, I only really need something simple for that. And then what handoffs is going to do is that's going to actually hand it off to another agent that you have defined in your file, and it'll even pre-fill out a prompt that you can put in. We'll go over this part a little bit later because that might become clear once we make another agent. So in Markdown, these triple dashes right here this is all what's defined as the front matter, so that we can actually put these key value pairs in there. And that defines a lot of what we need, but we still need like an actual body of what we have. So I just created a simple one beforehand that just tells, please make a detailed implementation plan. I want to include any links to it so that I can actually understand the decisions of what it's thinking, because I don't want to just take what it says as gospel here. I want to actually be able to interact with it and say, okay, well, why do we need this? And then once it's done that, it can hand it off to another agent that we have. So we'll go back to the agents folder and we'll create a new file here called tester.agents.md. And I have this on my clipboard too. Okay, so for this one, we want to give it a different set of tools. We want it to actually run the command. See, if you hover over it, it tells you like what it specifically is, so that it can give you a good sense. Because some of these tools are like, so if we go to the run command, see it has a drop down next to it. So hovering over it will give you all of these commands that are attached to this little group right here too. And then edit is another tool set, I guess what they call it. So basically this one can actually edit files, create new files in your workspace, and it can actually run commands to be able to actually run the test. I gave it the to-dos so that it can just follow the to-dos that were made before by the planner. I give it a body, so this actually says like create a failing test for the feature or the bug that we're defining, whatever it actually is, and then ensure that the tests actually reflect the expected behavior, because if you let it create tests, it'll often do way more than it actually needs to. So this gives us a few more guardrails, I guess, and we can always tweak this if we learn more, like if we want it to only mock certain things or use certain test fixtures, or if we want only 2 tests and not like 20 that it'll inevitably create. What I want for the test is I want it to ultimately have good test coverage and to be able to like test edge cases. And then I say that once the test is finished, then we'll hand it off to the implementation agent. Now, let's save that. So if we go back to the planner file here, you'll see that the yellow squiggly that we had underneath tester here is now gone, because it does know that we have a tester agent. See, you can see it right here in the drop down list. So what this handoff is going to do is basically I'm going to be able to go to a planner and see it automatically does Claude Sonnet 4.5, which is what we had defined for it. And then once I actually tell it, like, this is the plan, this is the feature that I want to actually implement, then it will actually have a button once it's finished, and it will be create failing test label right here, and then it will automatically switch over the agent to the tester, use whatever model is defined in there, and it'll give you a pre-filled in prompt, which you can actually use to feed to this new agent. What you can do with this send boolean here, this is important too, because you can set this to true, and then it won't even prompt you, it'll just automatically go to the next agent. I don't actually want that, because what I want is when it plans out something, then I want to actually interact with it, right? And be able to say, well, why are you thinking of doing this, and can't we do this to make it a little bit simpler? So I'm going to keep that as false for right now. And then this will be the same as the handoff defined in the tester.agent. Okay, so now let's make a file called implementation.agents.md. Okay, so this one is this, as you can see, like the file is a little bit longer. I have a little bit more going on. So I'm giving it all of the, basically all of the tools that the tester had, because what I want this to do, what I envision for it, is I want it to also be able to, after it implements the feature, to be able to go back and to actually make sure that the test pass. I also give it access to everything in the Pylance MCP server. This basically is going to give it access to everything on the language server so that it can go back and start linting itself. Nice stuff that we want with an actual implementation. So the documentation that it puts out like doc strings, I want it to actually go in and reference this file right here. That it should default that for doc strings. Then have it run tests, ensure the test coverage is adequate. Doesn't need to be 100%, but still running through edge case and stuff. Don't introduce any linting errors. If there are, then I don't want it to actually address that, because there might be like existing linting errors or something like that too. But I just want it to address those to me specifically. I want it to follow everything in rough, so in the pyproject.toml. And then so once we're done with the implementation, I'm going to have one more handoff, and that's going to be to an agent called a tutor. And that one, I basically want to just be able to explain the code to me with examples. Alright, so we'll create one more agent, and we'll call this tutor.agents.md. Okay. Now, this one is going to be really short. We don't need much in it. The tools, it's basically, it has the toolset search, and that's it. So it can just read the code base. We'll explain the code in simple terms, break down complex concepts to easily understandable language. So basically, pretend like I'm 5. Focus on the key concepts, etc., all that stuff. So that should be good. So that kind of defines our workflow. Is what we're going to do down here is we'll have it first on the planner, then the planner will hand it off to the tester. The tester will go ahead and make a failing test, and then that will hand it off to the implementation. And then that will do the bulk of the work, kind of the heavy lifting of this whole thing. Then that will hand it off to the tutor, who will basically explain everything to me. Alright, so now that we have the whole workflow set up, next time we'll go ahead and we'll try it out on the feature that we want to implement. So thanks for watching.